One of the really cool tools on the ServiceNow platform is dashboards. We get to pull in widgets, whether they're reports or list views, list reports. Anything that we want to pull into a dashboard is a neat little powerful tool. The one thing that I found lacking, and through research on the community and Google, I didn't see a way anywhere that there's an out of the box process for adding CSS styling to a dashboard. So that was frustrating. So I set out to figure out a way to do it. And in this video, we're going to walk through how to do it. To add style to this dashboard requires us to somehow get CSS into the dashboard. And the way we can do that is by creating a UI page. The way UI pages get pulled into dashboards is by pulling them in through a System UI widget. So we're going to walk through those two steps. Now we're going to walk through a UI page that has the styling in it, and then the System UI widget that identifies the UI page to pull into the dashboard. So let's start off by creating a UI page. And how do we do that? You go to your filter navigator, type in, like I've done here, UI pages, and you just click on UI pages. And normally I would click new, but because I've already created one, I'm going to open up the one I've already created. Okay, so what are we going to do here to make this UI page give us the capability to have styling? What we do is, in the typical UI page layout, we've got an HTML box and we have a client script box. There's also a processing script. We're not going to use that for this. So we're going to start off at the top. The name of your UI page is super important because it's referenced when we build the System UI widget. So however you want to name this, name it. I've named it with a naming convention. My application is called Stylish Dashboards, so it's SDB underscore dashboard styler. I just chose category of home page because this is basically home pages. The application is dashboard. The endpoint, if we wanted to, we could click on this to see this in the normal UI, but I don't care to see it in the normal UI. I just want to use this to get style into my dashboard. So description, just a simple description, just a place to drop styling so it can be applied to dashboards. Now, let's talk about the HTML section here. The HTML section is where we get to put in the CSS style sheet. If you've never worked in UI page, UI pages are jelly based. But for our purposes, yeah, you just don't need to worry about that. All you need to know is copy all this code that you see from the blog article and drop it here into this HTML box. All of it. The top couple of lines is just standard UI page HTML, and then we just drop in a style sheet. And the style sheet, the way I figured this out is by using my dev tools on the Chrome browser to inspect the DOM and try to find the different parts of the DOM that I wanted to add styling to. So you can use this as it is. If there's other areas of your dashboard that you want to style, you can use your dev tools to figure out where in the DOM you want to do that, and you can add your own styling in here. Just be careful because classes are typically what's used. I don't think you can rely on IDs for any DOM elements because I think IDs sometimes are, depending on the dashboard you create, a different ID may be created. So try to stay away from using IDs in here and try to find classes that you want to style. So again, I found all the classes that I wanted to and I added them here. I also created my own hide styler class, and that's used, we're going to show you in the client side of this, what it does to manipulate the UI page so that it doesn't appear to the end user. And then finally, you're going to see as we add this to the dashboard that this has to be this UI page has to be at the top of the dashboard because it needs to be visible when the page loads for the CSS to take effect. So we don't want it appearing to the user, so we do some jQuery below that adds this hide styler, and what it's going to do is it's going to take this UI page and it's going to move it up 110 pixels. And then I add this margin bottom to give it space between itself and all the other widgets that are on your dashboard. What happened was, as I was developing this and I was hiding this UI page, I noticed if I didn't add a margin bottom, then all of the widgets were overlapping each other on the bottom. So I just played with the number for a little while until I come up with 115 pixels that seemed to work. And so as the page itself loads, you see this UI page for a brief, second or second and a half. So what I did was I just added, this is HTML. You can add HTML in a UI page, and that is what would normally appear when the UI page is loaded. What I'm adding here is in small font. That's what this ID is up here. You can see the styler helper info small font, and this is just helper for administrators who are managing dashboards. You can see that it just gives, what is this UI page, how's it included into the dashboard. And then because this widget shows up at the top of the page briefly, I'm just mocking up a kind of a loading identifier that if the user sees this, they'll think that it's just telling them that everything is loading. That's kind of a workaround. For me, it's not a big deal. For you, you may have to figure out another way to do this. So that's it. HTML has all the styles that you want to use to create a styling for your dashboard, and a little bit of just kind of precursor information and text to show up on your top of your dashboard as the dashboard is loading. So that's our UI page. That's one of the two files that we need to create to be able to add CSS to a dashboard. So next thing we want to look at is the widget. And a widget is what you pull into a dashboard. For our purposes, you need a widget that identifies what UI page you want to pull in. So keep that in mind. The widget we create is going to identify this UI page through its name, and it's basically saying, when this widget loads, go grab this UI page with this name. So let's go look at the widget. So if I want to get to widgets, I'm going to go System UI, and I'm going to scroll down to widgets, click on widgets. And again, I would click new normally, but in my case, I've already created it. So I'm just going to open it. So the widget's straightforward. Name it whatever you want. This is what will show up when you're trying to pull this widget into your dashboard. Leave the renderer type as JavaScript. The script box is standard stuff for pulling in a UI page using a widget. Let me expand this to see what I mean. This is just some source you can look at for how to use this, and this is just a link to my blog article. So first thing I want to point out is line 10 and below. This is canned information. This doesn't change. No matter how many times you pull this into wherever you want to pull it in, you don't need to change this. I just noticed this. I'm going to delete this now. We don't want that showing up. So again, all the stuff below here is standard. Don't change any of it. What you do need to change is this object that gets returned in the function sections. So dashboard styler, name it what you want. The type field is that reference to the name field that we had on the UI page. So this is key. If this is wrong, it won't know which UI page to pull in. And that's it. Save this UI page with this code. Make sure you reference your name field and the UI page you want to pull in. And that's how you create the UI page and the System UI widget. So what's next? Getting the widget into the dashboard so that we can apply the CSS. So let's go do that. I'm going to click here, the ServiceNow logo, to go to the dashboard that I want to manipulate. So again, I have two dashboards here. You can see a dashboard for this app that is going to have no styling on it. And you're going to see this dashboard that we're going to apply the styling right now. So how do we get the widget into the dashboard? The same way you get any widget into a dashboard. Just like when we added reports to this dashboard, how did we do it? We click this plus symbol. So I'm going to go ahead and click this plus symbol. And when I click on the widget category, I'm going to find my dashboard styler. If you don't see it first, the first time you come back here, make sure you just refresh your browser window just to make sure that that widget has a chance to show up in the menu. So again, click the plus to expose the Add Widgets menu. Click on widget category and you'll see somewhere in here is that dashboard style that I created. So when I click on this, it gives me just some more information about that widget. If I click on this again, you can actually see the preview of the HTML that was in that UI page. And you'll notice when I selected that, it actually applied the styling that I have for this. Now when I click add, it puts that UI page through the widget at the top. Now the challenge is, and I couldn't figure out a way around this, but you can see because the styling is applied, I've moved everything up 115 pixels. The problem with that is I can't see this to manipulate it because this has to be as short height-wise as possible. So what I figured out was if I click the plus again to hide the menu and then click it again to show it again, it will give me the entire view of this widget. Now all I want to do is I want to grab the bottom of this and drag it up to be as short as possible. So I'm trying to drag it, it won't drag any smaller. So when I do that, if you look at the dev tools now for Chrome, you'll see that this is 90 pixels tall. So that's where I got the 115 pixels that I wanted to move this up. And I'm going to go back and talk about the code inside the UI page and how this works. So just to recap again, right? We created a UI page that has the HTML that contains both the loading reports that we see here, and this is a UI page instructions, and it has all the CSS that provides us with the coloring and the styling that you see here. Then I come here, click my widget plus sign, I go find my dashboard styler in the widget category, and when I preview it, it adds the style, and then I add it and it puts it at the top. And again, I have to hit the plus sign to get it to see all the way, and then I drag this to make it as short as possible. And that's it. Now I have the ability to create some CSS styling and then drop it into my dashboard. So let me go back real quick. Now that you see how that works, I want to talk a little bit about the code that I have to make all this work. So let's go back to the UI page. And let me see, UI page. So again, we already talked about the HTML adding the styling and the HTML elements to kind of mock a loading indicator. So let's actually look at the code that we use in the client script to make all this work. So just remember that when the page loads, it shows it for a little while and then it hides it. It's not really hiding anything. What it's doing is it's moving every single widget that's in the dashboard, it's moving it up negative 115 pixels. And I chose 115 pixels to move it up because again, when I dragged that dashboard as small as possible, or the styler for the dashboard as small as possible, I couldn't make it any smaller than 90 pixels. So moving it up 115 hides it completely out of the view window. So how does that work? So we start off here. I mean, you can read this when you copy this code. You can see what's going on. This is a link to my blog article again. Using just some standard jQuery, I'm finding this class, and this class is what holds every widget on the page. And I'm adding that class called hideStyler. If we go back and look at hideStyler up here, all hideStyler is doing is it's moving everything up negative 110 pixels, and it's giving a margin bottom of 115 pixels. Man, I should have deleted this, but you can delete it if you want. I was playing with numbers until I came up with one that worked. So again, it adds this style to all of those elements and basically moves everything up negative 115 pixels, 110 pixels. So that's what this first line does. One thing I noticed when I was developing this, when I was on the dashboard, I'll refresh this because I had this open earlier. One thing I noticed was that jQuery adds the CSS class that hides it. When I clicked the plus sign, that top widget stayed hidden. So if I ever wanted to remove the styling, I couldn't. So what I had to do is build in a way so I could see it. So what I did was, this button has an attribute of ngIf. So what I'm doing is I'm using some jQuery and waiting for this button to get clicked. When it's clicked and this is open, then it shows this again. When this is clicked again and the menu goes away, then it hides that. So let's go back and look at how I'm doing that. So here we are again. The page loads and it moves everything up 110 pixels. I think I said 115 earlier, but it's 110. So once it's moved and hidden, it stays hidden until I click that plus button. And that's what this is doing. Line 18 is waiting for that button, that plus button. So this right here is a reference to that plus button. Whenever it's clicked, it assigns the button state of Araya, or I'm not sure how to pronounce that, Araya pressed. And you'll notice if you click on the button and then inspect it with your dev tools, you'll see that it sets Araya pressed to true if it's been pressed and to false otherwise. So I'm getting the button state. If it's true, then I'm hiding all of that stuff again by moving it up 110 pixels. If it's false, then I'm exposing it. So all this code does is it gives me the ability to, when I click the plus button, when I'm trying to manage the dashboard, it allows me to see that top widget so that if I want to get rid of it and remove the styling, I can do that. So again, let's recap. What we need to make this work is we need a UI page. In the UI page's HTML, we have CSS and just kind of a precursor bit of HTML that the user might see. The client script that allows me to hide everything by moving it up. Wait for the button to click so I can see it and remove it if I want to. So that's the UI page. Then we have the UI widget, the System UI widget. And again, what's important about this is everything below line 10 doesn't need to be touched. This object that gets returned, this value here is whatever you want. This type has to be the name from the name field from the UI page. And again, when we go back to the dashboard, the way this works is you click the plus. I'm going to remove this so we can do this again. As I remove it, you see all the styling goes away. So you click the plus, click on here to go find my dashboard styler. It gives me a little title. When I click on this, it gives me a preview. And you can see as this loaded, it actually applied the styling. When I add it, it adds it to the top. And because the styling is moving everything up 115 pixels, I can't see it. So for me to see it and to be able to manipulate it, I'm going to hit the plus once again to hide the menu and hit it again to re-show it. And then we have to remember that the last thing we need to do here is make sure we move this up all the way as small as it can be. And that's it, folks. That's how you add styling to your dashboard.